1 year ago, Zimbabweans danced and celebrated across the country. President Robert Mugabe had been forced out of office, and people welcomed the end of his era as a new political and economic dawn for the country. Software developer Sandisiwe Usimane says the country has made progress since.
I feel things have changed. I feel people feel free to speak their minds. They feel free to express themselves, and the youth are participating in startups, businesses, technology, and we are seeking the support from the government to help us.
But not everyone feels that way.
We are suffering more than we were with the President Mugabe. It was much better. Now, there's no change. Everything, now prices are going up every day. We cannot even afford to buy a meal, just a meal.
Mugabe held power for 37 years. He presided over a country that declined from a regional power to one that millions fled. Following a long brewing battle for succession, the military seized control last year and forced him to resign. His successor, Emmerson Mnangagwa, had pledged to revive the economy, attract foreign investment and create jobs.
We are all Zimbabweans. We want to grow our economy. We want peace in our country. We want jobs in our country. We need the cooperation of the continent of Africa. We need the cooperation of our friends outside the continent.
That change, however, hasn't happened, with unemployment in Zimbabwe rising to around 90%. The southern African country's debt has reached nearly $17 billion, almost 100% of GDP. And consumer prices last month rocketed to 20.9%, their fastest pace since hyperinflation last seen a decade ago. The country is running out of foreign currency to buy imported goods and facing a shortage of everyday essentials like food and petrol. Mnangagwa's promised surge in investment also hasn't materialised. Analysts say investors are concerned about political instability, but the government blames international sanctions that remain in place due to lack of reform, which it says takes time.
What we are realizing is that the removal of Mugabe as an individual does not change the system. So this is the same old system, and I don't think the issue of, say, give us time will even give us any results.
Patience may be all that many Zimbabweans have, but for most of them progress, if there is any, is much too slow. Jemima Walker, TRT World.
And Derek Matyszak joins me now from Harare in Zimbabwe. He's a senior researcher at the Institute for Security Studies. Good to have you back on the program. So, as we heard there, it seems not much has changed in the space of a year, but I'm wondering, is it too much to ask for an economic transformation in the space of just 1 year, or is Emmerson Mnangagwa the wrong man for the job?
Well, the problem Mnangagwa has is that Mugabe left him a very big economic hole to climb out of. And rather than climbing out of that hole, Mnangagwa has in fact dug it a little bit deeper. The basic problems in Zimbabwe stem from government overspending. The government has been running massive budget deficits since 2013. From the end of the unity government in 2013, government debt was negligible. Domestic debt was around about 200 million. But in the space of five short years, that domestic debt has increased to almost $10 billion. So you combine that with external debt, Zimbabwe has a debt of about $16.9 billion. So that's the crux of the problem. And in order to finance that domestic debt, government has in fact been creating money. It's rather complex because we are in fact a dollarized economy. We adopted the US dollar in 2009. But government has basically been creating money by making electronic book entries into the credit columns of local banks and creating what we call electronic money. And this now has an inflationary effect.
So in terms of the leadership, is Emmerson Mnangagwa the man who can take Zimbabwe out of its economic problems, or is there an alternative that might do a better job?
Well, the difficulty is that Zimbabwe might already be locked in a downward spiral as a result of the policies of Robert Mugabe. Emmerson Mnangagwa has tried to liberalize the economy. He's adopted a mantra that Zimbabwe is open for business because the Mnangagwa administration has identified foreign direct investment as the solution to these monetary problems. The difficulty is that investors are not only reluctant to come in because of political uncertainty, but also because these economic fundamentals are very shaky and make investment in Zimbabwe extremely risky. It also makes it very difficult for capital to find an exit. If the money that is earned by investors in Zimbabwe is this electronic money and not actually a hard US dollar cash, it cannot be taken offshore, shareholders cannot be paid, etc. So it's an extremely difficult sort of catch-22 conundrum for the Mnangagwa administration.
Okay, so you mentioned the issue of electronic money there as part of the problem. We know that the currency situation has been fraught in Zimbabwe, from the local currency that experienced hyperinflation a decade ago to the move to the US dollar and to this seemingly interim measure now that's in between. Do you think Zimbabwe should just resort to the US dollar or even the South Africa rand in order to help solve this problem?
Certainly, there are many economists who recommend that Zimbabwe should adopt the South African rand. South Africa is Zimbabwe's largest trading partner, and it's more difficult to export and externalize the rand than it is to externalize the US dollar. So that would certainly help the situation. But whether it would be sufficient is debatable. Effectively, though, regardless of any government policy, the economy is really re-dollarizing and converting this electronic money at a high premium. At the moment, the ratio is 3.5 to 1 of the electronic money to real US dollars. And the economy is, regardless of government policy, is really re-dollarizing, and various businesses are charging for goods and services in hard cash.
Okay, Derek, Matyszak, we will have to leave it there, but thank you again for your insights.